And the question that I have for you is, what is money? How's it changed from the last time I asked you this question?
Yeah, you're exactly right that you ask yourself the question, what is Bitcoin? The obvious answer to that is Bitcoin is money. It's really nothing else. But then you get into the question, well, what is money? And that's where the rabbit hole sort of opens up, I think, for a lot of people. And it's funny because we obviously define this word money in terms of other words. But one of the themes that I've encountered again and again on this show, and having talked to, I don't know, we've had like episode 470 at this point. So we've probably talked to, over 350 guests. Some of them have been repeat guests. One of the themes that I've repeatedly encountered is the limitations of language itself, right? The capacity of words to represent reality fully. It's obviously the best tool we've got for mapping this very complex world that we inhabit. But I think it's simultaneously, it's indispensable, right, to human communication, obviously, human rationality, cognition, all of the systems in which we cooperate and compete as the rational animal, as Aristotle called us. Language is a necessary component of that, right? There's no such thing as a business that doesn't involve language, or hardly any activity. Like it's part of our internal dialogue, right? We use language internally, even in the conversation that is ourselves. And so it's indispensable to being human, but it also seems to be simultaneously insufficient. And the language can never capture the totality of reality. And in fact, when people do think that language can, or knowledge more generally, can be totalized or totalizing, that you can capture all the complexities of reality in just propositional phrases, I think that is the hallmark of totalitarianism, right? That you actually, it's totalizing knowledge. It's the idea that you have the final solution, the final answer, the ultimate central plan that everyone just needs to follow, and this will solve all the world's problems and usher us into the utopia. And as we've seen time and time again historically, that tends to end up in its opposite, dystopian state. So trying to answer the question, what is money? I mean, I think one of the, maybe the deepest answers to it is that it's strange, right? Because when you ask a definition, right, you're thinking about this word in terms of other words. And so this mechanism actually is something that's very essential to human cognition. And I would call this, based on where I'm at today, the mechanism of metaphor itself. They're actually thinking about one thing in terms of another thing. And so I'm writing a long piece about this, but when you really, a lot of this is based on the book Metaphors We Live By. That's Lakoff and Johnson, I think, are the authors of that. And then they've also written a book called Where Mathematics Comes From, arguing that mathematics itself is a metaphorical construct. And so the general idea is that as human beings, all we really have is our raw experience of embodied physical engagement with physical reality. Like that is our primary substrate of experience. From that experience, we can abstract that up into cognitive space, basically. So several words are metaphorical, several phrases are metaphorical. So for instance, the word understand, right? It's like to stand beneath something to gain a deeper perspective on that thing. So you're mapping the physical experience of standing under something to get a deeper perspective on its inner workings, right? Maybe you're under the hood of a car, or you're actually laying under the car to see how it works and repair it, right? You're not necessarily standing in that case, but you're under it, basically. And we're mapping that physical experience onto the cognitive experience of gaining a more intricate comprehension of something, right? You're understanding it in a more detailed way, basically. And so other words like, so to understand something more deeply is to get closer to the substance of the thing, which is also to sub, below, stance, to stand. There's other words like, supervision, which is like the vision up from above. So you're seeing something from multiple perspectives. And so like, do you get my point, right? Do you see what I'm saying? There's all these metaphorical phrases, words, and it's like our entire conceptual apparatus or rational apparatus is really constructed from metaphor, is the hypothesis of these individuals. And there's been a lot of work done on this since, and I think it's a pretty strong argument. So even the definition itself, right? What is money? Well, it's kind of metaphorical, right? You're thinking about one word in terms of other words. And then this gets you into kind of a circularity because, well, each word that you use to define the word money also has a definition behind it made up of other words. And so if you follow that to its ultimate conclusion, you end up in this circle of words. There's this strange thing. You can sort of see this phenomenon in action if you go to Wikipedia and they say you click the first hyperlinked word in each entry and you just keep repeating that, right? So you open up anything in Wikipedia, choose your favorite subject, click the first hyperlinked word that will take you to another entry in Wikipedia. That's what each hyperlinked word is, to another entry for that term in Wikipedia. And you repeat that process. And in something like 97% of the cases, you end up in the philosophy page. Like it always grounds out in philosophy because you get to like the bottom of language and it's like, how does language ground out into physical embodied existence? So I think, so this is something we're doing, like, so what are we doing? We're taking something that we don't understand and we're taking different aspects of it and we're analogizing it or metaphorizing it in terms of something that we do understand to gain a deeper perspective on it, to understand it better. And so with money, I think it is one of the most powerful metaphorical systems we have. Obviously, mathematics is this very universal language. I can't speak to how and why that is a metaphorical system, but I would say check out that book where mathematics comes from. There's a very sophisticated argument there. But the beauty of mathematics is that it is universalizable, right? Anything that is quantifiable basically can be categorized in terms of 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So it's a universal language system or universal category system, if you will. Very useful for mapping and describing reality, right? To the point where we discover things in mathematics prior to observation, right? Einstein discovered, in quotation marks, the existence of black holes in mathematical abstract space before we ever, quote unquote, observed one. We still haven't technically observed it. We've just seen stars go around the core of a galaxy and they go so fast and they're going around one common center of gravity that we infer the existence of a black hole. You can't observe it because light doesn't escape, obviously. But Einstein, again, mathematically observed these, I don't know if observed is the right term, discovered black holes, 40, 50 years prior to our physical observation of them. So
just based on the theory.
Just based on mathematical theory.
And also, Neptune also was discovered that way, just via pure mathematics. And the reason I interrupted you is because I think that Bitcoin, there's a connection to mathematics, which you can make as the language of the universe, right?
Yes.
And the connection is via, I would say that proof of work anchors Bitcoin to the universe. It anchors Bitcoin to where we are in this this life. And I would say that is a complete and utter contradiction, the polar opposite to what fiat money represents, which is it brings all the flaws of of humanity alongside it, right? It starts morally and ethically, and then progressively over time, it starts to degrade. And it's only this only didn't just happen here in the United States. This happened in the Roman Empire as well. So it's a very kind of interesting phenomenon. Anyways, I didn't want to interrupt your thought.
Yeah. So to finish the thought on money, right, I think it's a metaphorical system because we are looking at the world, specifically the world of socioeconomic activity, right? So people, in terms of their net worth or particular goods, businesses, right? The example I like to give is, if you're an entrepreneur and you run a business for an entire year, well, there's a great deal of complex action, interaction, buying, selling, hiring, firing, planning, executing, right? There's all of this kind of maelstrom of human action, if you will, right? By both the entrepreneur, their employees, their vendors, et cetera, all these interconnections and relations. But at the end of the day, or the end of the year rather, we just compress all of that activity into this statement, right? It's a profit and loss statement, a balance sheet, a statement of cash flows. And so this is just a mathematical data compression via money, right? The financial statements only make sense in terms of money, obviously. And so then you get this highly compressed piece of data, this artifact that tells you a lot of what you need to know about all of that business activity. And then it makes it comparable over time, right? You can look at your profit and loss statement year to year. You can also look at it across businesses. And you get this apples to apples comparisons among all of this apples to oranges activity that takes place in the actual world, right? But we compress it via money, via the metaphor of money, into a mathematical statement that is comparable and relevant to the aims of the entrepreneur, right? You need to know if you're being profitable or not. Because if you're not, well, then eventually you're going to consume all your resources and you're going to be dead in the water, so to speak. So it's, in that sense, it is a measuring tool. Like money doesn't measure value per se, but it is measuring inputs and outputs in that way. And so I think what we're doing with money, to bring this to the answer, like what is money is something like a tool that lets us metaphorize the complexities of human action in terms of mathematics, something that's very wet code, as Nick Szabo would say, hard to measure, hard to quantify, et cetera, into something that's very dry code, right? It's very, very quantifiable, algorithmic. You can perform operations on it, you can perform arithmetic, et cetera. And so that we need that, right? We need to convert all of this kind of messy, fluid, complex reality that we're dealing with all the time into something that is linguistic and in a common language, so we can communicate, negotiate, execute trades, et cetera. All of this is necessary. And then there's a feedback, right? Like the more clear your data is about yourself and your business, the more adequately you can make decisions in that messy business process that guide you towards desired outcomes, right? Profitability, business growth, acquisitions, hiring, firing, whatever it may be. And then all that activity feeds back into the financial statements. And this seems to be kind of the feedback loop of human rationality, that we have, our ideas about how the thing works, and then there's how the thing actually works, and both inform one another. And so in the same way that language is this metaphorical system for, decomplexifying, mapping the world, if you will, but it can never contain the whole thing, right? The map cannot be the territory. If the map contained every detail of the territory, it would no longer be the map, it would be the territory. And so you need to be able to kind of ignore certain aspects and emphasize other aspects to make salient the data you need to act, basically. So language is a very important tool for human action in that way, right? That I can talk to you about things. I can draw your attention to specific things with words, and then we're sharing this open source software that is English, so we can connect our minds, basically. Money's performing a similar function, but in a way in a higher signal way, and at a much larger scale, right? We're talking about coordinating entrepreneurial activities across the globe, right? And then you could get into things like the price signal, which are also denominated in money. You don't need people that are participating in the copper industry don't need to know that there was an earthquake in Chile that caused the mine to collapse that made the price go up. Like, they just need to see the number go up. And then it's like producers are incentivized to produce more, consumers are incentivized to consume less. And via this mechanism, the market rectifies the shortage of copper. So money is like this extremely powerful tool for scaling human rationality and also integrating human rationality into the material world, right? We start to think about the actual supply of goods and the demand for those goods in terms of mathematics, right? This is the price. And the price, I think, is one of the most, I think it is the primary instrument for commanding human attention in the world, right?
100%.
People's net worth, the prices of assets, Bitcoin, right? What draws everyone into Bitcoin? Like,
Number go up. Yeah.
Everyone. I mean, maybe there's a few people who are like, oh, I studied the tech first and that's what made me excited. Maybe. But 99+% of people are drawn in by the price. And the price is only possible because of money. Money is only possible because of mathematics. Mathematics is only possible because of metaphor.